What's up guys, Houndish here, and today, Season of the Wish finally arrives. In a typical Bungie fashion, we are getting the trailer for this season pretty much immediately before it goes live. So, of course that means we get the opportunity to look at some of the activity content, more of the theme for Season of the Wish, but also a bunch of the gear. Generally Bungie are pretty good at making their trailers, as we all know. So, in this one we'll break it all down, as well as some of the press kit content for the season, but also some of the bigger changes that we're going to see today which are worth keeping in mind. So as always, I hope you enjoy this one, but without further delay, let's get into it, and let's start out by checking out the trailer in full if you haven't seen it. And so here it is.
A wish to pursue the witness. Only Riven can open the way. Riven, whose heart was torn out by guardians. We have a dragon to charm.
I am dead, as are the rest of my kind. But if you were to secure my eggs, then you would also secure your heart's desire. It is your turn to grant a last wish. Beware, Guardian. You may find it a place most unwelcoming.
You knew from the beginning.
Last words. Last wish. Last words. Last wish. Last words. Last wish. All wishes come at a cost.
And so there we have it guys. As always, Bungie can bring a pretty hype trailer, and Riven, who we killed, is going to be a key component of this season. And there's an almost sort of ghost version of Riven that we see there, which is pretty interesting. There also seems to be a loose mashup with sort of Season of the Undying themes, the Blackguard and Vex, and we even see some of the weapons that we got from Season of Undying in the trailer as well. And my assumption is those will be additional drops from activities and things like that. They aren't the sort of core bits of loot for the season, but of course we do get a look at plenty of the gear, so we can see right here seasonal weapons and armor, and the armor's pretty cool. It's sort of Awoken meets Ahamkara themed. It's similar with the weapons as well, and of course there's a bit of a Dreaming City theme going on. We see some Ahamkara eggs, which obviously we're going to be hunting down during this season, and plenty of glitzy, glamorous shots inside of the Dreaming City, and some of the activity content here is going to have very familiar themes as we descend into the dragon's lair, and there's that last wish and 15th wish tease there as well. So the story component in itself is going to be pretty interesting. Very curious to see what the Vex involvement will be as well. We see a mashup of different enemies here potentially that we'll encounter in some of the seasonal activity content, some different hive bosses, even Scorn, and once again some of the Season of Undying weapons. There's what looks to be a stasis trace rifle in the mix as well, potentially an exotic but probably a seasonal one based on the skin that we can see. We do however see what appears to be a new exotic bow, and we can see the Ahamkara and sort of Awoken themes in there as well. There's very obviously a strand bow that can suspend enemies, so that potentially looks pretty cool. But also we see Dragon's Breath, where that projectile attaches to the enemy and then explodes and spreads that sort of scorch fire around the place. And there are a couple of shots at the end that show some of the Witcher armor in the game. That's the new sort of mashup that Bungie are doing this season, and I think that stuff will come from Eververse. And then finally, there are a couple of clips in the Black Garden here as well. And clearly Petra, as well as Mara Sov, even Osiris and the Crow are obviously going to be key characters in the story this season. And so overall, potentially interesting right there in terms of story content. It looks like Dragon's Lair is going to be one of the key activities, although the gameplay doesn't really give too much away in terms of what we'll be doing. But we've got a few press images here that show off some of the armor and the gear in better detail. In terms of the activity content and the sort of places that we're playing, once again, obviously the Dreaming City is very familiar, so how interesting and new that will feel for players isn't exactly clear just yet. I guess it's equally as important how how engaging the actual gameplay portion is. But of course, we're going to find out a little bit later today, so give us your thoughts on the trailer right there, guys, some of the rewards we've seen, and the general theme of the season. I'll be curious to get your thoughts in the comment section. Now though, let's round up another bunch of items worth keeping in mind as we head into Season 23. And we got a few things that players will want to think about in the first couple of days. So firstly, Bungie haven't really elaborated on this since they mentioned it, but they have said that there will be a brand new Hake aggressive frame strand pulse rifle as the competitive division reward starting in Season 23. So for PvP players, definitely it'll be worth jumping in and checking that one out. Could be a pretty good weapon, of course. Plus Bungie have added new focusing options on shacks for competitive specific rewards, and especially legacy ones that aren't currently available in the season. So that's definitely worth checking out if you're a PvP player. And otherwise, of course, we get the new ritual weapon that can be earned in the Crucible, Vanguard, or Gambit, and this is the Chivalric Fire, a new Void Caster Sword. And Bungie have teased that it can roll Repulsor Brace as well as destabilizing rounds, plus it gets a new perk called Attrition Orbs, where dealing sustained damage creates an orb of power, and that one will pair pretty nicely with Relentless Strikes, so a couple of good rolls there for sure, and it's another thing that we can check out early on in the season. And then of course, the first exotic that we'll get access to is the Dragon's Breath, and this will be the Season of the Wish Season Pass exotic. And Dragon's Breath has a new perk called Burn the World. This features a fuel counter that passively increases the longer we go without firing the weapon, up to a maximum of 5, and then firing Dragon's Breath will empty the counter, which transfers all of the fuel to the rocket, and they say the rockets will be able to embed themselves in struck targets, causing scorch damage, and periodically ejecting incendiary fuel into pools around the target, and these will inflict scorch damage to anyone standing in them. On top of that though, nearby ignitions with Dragon's Breath will instantly refill the fuel, and when the fuel fully refills, it will reload the weapon. And finally, there'll be an exotic catalyst, and this passively replenishes the Dragon's Breath's fuel counter, plus eliminating combatants with the weapon causes them to spawn fire sprites. So that's going to be an interesting one to check out as we head into the season. But other little quality of life things include that we'll be able to access the vault from orbit, so whenever sitting in orbit, we'll be able to get access to stuff in the vault, pull things out. And of course, while we still do have other options like Destiny Item Manager, for players who don't use those, or when those tools are down, it'll at least save us a trip to the helm or the tower. So that's something else that might be useful, especially around the start of the season when the servers are going to be a bit iffy. And then for a couple of vendor changes, firstly, Banshee is getting a little bit of a rework, where it's going to feature different weapons on a daily basis. And so there'll be a 4-day rotation, with day 1 featuring Omolon and Soros weapons, day 2 featuring Soros and Hake, day 3 featuring Hake and Weist, and day 4 featuring Weist and Omolon. So this will make it a little bit easier to track specific gunsmith weapons. We do have new gunsmith focusing options, with the ability to earn gunsmith engrams for focusing via lost sectors. And so when destroying all champions in a lost sector, legend clears will have a 70% chance to drop gunsmith engrams, with master clears having a 100% drop chance. And once again, there'll be a 4-day rotation inside of lost sectors, where we get extra chances to drop the weapons. So we can see all 4 of the days there have different featured weapons. Bungie have said completions where all champions are destroyed on master difficulty will have the advantage of weapons dropping with an additional perk in either the 3rd or 4th column. So between the changes to Lost Sectors and Banshee, all of the Foundry weapons are going to be easier to target moving forward. A couple of final things here though. Keep in mind that on November 30th from 9 AM PST to 5 PM, there will be a raid stress test for the new Fireteam Finder function. And I believe that's the first time that Fireteam Finder will actually be available in the season. So if you want to jump in and try that out, be sure to head into some raids on the 30th, which is Thursday. But following that, we should see a kind of beta period for the Fireteam Finder at some point in December, depending on how that stress test goes. So it's certainly going to be something to jump in and try out, and all being well, we'll get a full release for Fireteam Finder late in January. Although Bungie have said, players may require a little bit of patience in the first couple of weeks, as essentially there could be a couple of technical gremlins that Bungie need to work around. So we'll see how it goes, it'll be interesting, and let us know if you plan to jump in on the 30th to test it out inside of some of the raids in the game. But a last note to keep in mind as we go into the season today, we can now use any of the sparrows in the game and achieve the maximum potential speed, as Bungie have updated sparrow speeds to be equivalent to always on time, which allows us to use any sparrow in the game and still race at full speed around the map. So pull out your favorite whip and enjoy new faster traveling options as we go into the season. For today though guys, there are a few highlights worth keeping in mind, especially within the first couple of days of the season. And for the video today, that's what we have to speak about. So as always, I hope you found it useful. If you have, a rating below really does help us out. Let us know what you think of what's been revealed for Season of the Wish so far, and be sure as well to get subscribed so I can keep you posted with more of the content throughout the course of the next couple of weeks. Otherwise though, cheers for tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.